Hello, everybody. This is Patty XRP and Mickey B Fresh teaming up for another video on the DeFi standard. And today we're going to get into some talk about the XRP Escrow and what that Seigniorage does for XRP demand and value. So, to lead into this, we are going to look at a couple messages from Matthew Rosendin, who is a former Ripple dev headlining the Trustline and Probity Vault project that is creating the Ore stablecoin. And in his first message, and this is via the Trustline Telegram group, he is being asked about the SEC case with Ripple as well as the XRP escrow. And he goes into saying, I think a lot of what is going on is the government perception that they have a right to seigniorage. And the Ripple lawsuit is effectively a case of whether corporates or individuals are allowed to make seigniorage. Government does not want to lose absolute rights to the printing press. That's where the Stable Act and its limitations on regulating crypto stablecoins get interesting. Ore has no seigniorage and is not applicable to the Stable Act either. What is the government to do? The only thing they can do is enforce MSB laws, and that's in reference to the Ore stablecoin and the Trustline project on the Flare network. And then the second thing he addresses here is he says, I could have launched this project anonymously like Satoshi, not requiring KYC, but do I want to live in fear of being exposed and face the consequences? Too risky for me. And then he goes in on Seigniorage. Profit made from the cost of producing a currency versus its value. XRP was near zero cost to produce. One can take the found oil argument, and any increase in price is effectively Seigniorage, which is pure profit. And then to move on from there, we'll look at the seigniorage definition on top of what Mr. Rosendin said here. And seigniorage is the difference between the face value of money, such as a $10 bill or a quarter coin, and the cost to produce it. So you can kind of think with XRP, like what was the cost to produce it? I would argue some of the time and efforts and infrastructure that was put into creating the XRP ledger and then minting all that XRP in the beginning. But effectively, XRP or Ripple selling XRP for whatever price it is from where it was created, that difference is the seigniorage they have and the pure profit. So Mickey, I know you have some very interesting thoughts on all of this, and I'd love to hand it over to you here.
Sure. So yes, Seigniorage, I think, is very important in the Ripple escrow. So the 45 billion or so that's escrowed right now is Seigniorage that basically could be algorithmically distributed. There's been a lot of talks in this case about the escrow, and I do agree that it is at the center, but I think it's a little different and deeper than many have led on to believe. It's not necessarily about them selling the XRP for profits. That's how it looks on the surface. But what it shows here in the definition and the way Matthew Rosendin explains it is that XRP is at zero cost. So it's not just about bottlenecking the supply and not distributing that XRP. Just like in Flare networks, how the FTSO has an inflation mechanism that rewards those for participating in certain behaviors, which is providing accurate price feeds. That creates demand for the asset, storage demand. So you're going to be more likely to hold Spark if you know you're going to earn more Spark. So just because they have this escrow and it can be utilized and distributed doesn't mean that that will lower the price. It actually could increase the demand here. So that's what market mechanism design is. So Ripple has this ability, and the SEC and some governments could feel threatened that they have this escrow. And the more utilization of the asset, the more demand there is. And they could create, they don't need to necessarily profit from the sales of XRP to support their business. That's not what this is about. It's about utilizing that XRP to drive more demand and more value into XRP. And it also could be to drive many other market mechanism designs within ODL and other use cases. Now, this is really where the threat comes to the central banks. That's their turf, really. They create money at no cost. So Ripple's able to distribute this XRP, and it costs them nothing to do that. And they don't need to profit. They're going to IPO for hundreds of millions of dollars. And right now, they're able to lend XRP at no cost. So it doesn't cost them anything to lend out this XRP. That is a tremendous advantage. And it's so advantageous to the whole network. That's why Bitcoin and Ethereum, other networks, try to, are a little, I guess, envious or jealous of, and they try to attack Ripple for saying, oh, it's centralized. They control most of the asset. But one thing I do want to point out here is the XRP ledger is not proof of stake and it's not hash power. So having a lot of the asset doesn't give you control over the network on the XRP ledger. Like in a proof of stake network, if you have a lot of the asset, then you can manipulate and control the network itself. But since it's not proof of stake, it doesn't have that control. And that's where a little confusion comes in from other communities, and they attack XRP and say, well, they have most of the supply and they can control the network. But that's not the case. The real advantage is utilizing that XRP to incentivize behavior, however that may be. Remember, Bob Way said about 2 years ago, there's mechanism designs that could gradually just increase the price of XRP. And that doesn't mean bottlenecking it. It's actually the opposite. It's utilizing it to incentivize liquidity and other types of distributions. And I think with machine learning, AI, smart contracts, smart programs, crypto conditions, there's all types of ways to set up the algorithmic distribution to incentivize behavior and incentivize demand and incentivize the value to increase. So I think that's a different perspective on the escrow that we really need to start looking towards.
Yep, exactly, Mickey. And so, some of the differences between Seigniorage coming from like the XRP ledger and Ripple, which is a decentralized protocol, versus, let's say, the Federal Reserve, which, is an arm of the US government in a sense, is that a government, they have jurisdiction like physically in the world. So in the US, we have states, we have a whole Congress that makes laws around this stuff. And then also, the US has an army behind it. So that's one of the things, coming with the US dollar is it's backed by the full faith and credit of the US government. But then on the side of the XRP ledger, what we have is a decentralized network that's spread throughout the entire globe geographically via the validators and nodes. And, these are two different kind of benefits that you can have. So it will be interesting to see, like, issuing currency from a decentralized protocol versus the governments, how that plays out. And then, Mickey, what are some of the other things, differences here between the two?
Yeah, so one of the key differences in the Seigniorage with the XRP ledger is there's only 100 billion XRP that could ever be created. So there is a cap on the Seigniorage, unlike with central banks, which can just continue printing and creating more money, which is more Seigniorage. Ripple's escrow at some point does run out. But as its value in dollars increases, it's more utilization. You could get more value out of it, but it is capped. So that is important that they can't just create more of it. So I
Absolutely.
think that's important to note there.
Absolutely. And so, like, we're talking about like using the XRP escrow for specific use cases and not just for profit. So, like, what could we tie this into so you can have an example? So, what Flare Finance is doing with their Flare Farm pools is the YFIN that's being delivered through dual token liquidity pools. So, that's like where you put in, FXRP in a stablecoin into a liquidity pool to provide people liquidity for swapping between those assets. They're giving a boosted rate to the YFIN you can earn in Flare Farm, which you access through that liquidity pool. And what that does is it's going to drive and incentivize some people to participate in those pools that you have exposure to the opportunity cost that comes with impermanent loss, but now you have some added benefit there that's driving a certain behavior. And these blockchains, a lot of them are made with game theory mechanics like in mind. So it's something important that can be utilized in the future. Like the US government right now, when it prints money, basically, it'll hand it over to some entity for it to be put into the economy. So that's one way to do it. But here you're setting up on the XRP ledger, you'd be setting up the mechanism for incentives to be used. So definitely different ways to look at it. And with Flare Finance, that'll tie us into the next topic for today's video. So Flare Finance's Twitter vote for new wrapped assets to be listed on the FlareX decentralized exchange, as well as being brought over from their native chain through FlareWrap. That has been finished up, and we can see here that we have from Ethereum coming over Celsius and Telcoin, as well as from Binance Smart Chain, we'll have BNB and Cake. And then the two meme coins that were voted on the most was Shiba Inu and Senshu. So what is going on here? These are not going to be F assets, but they are merely the value of these assets on their native chain. So Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Terra is going to be integrated. You can bring that value over to the Flare network and use it in Flare Finance through the mechanism called Flare Wrap. And to get into FlareWrap briefly, so what you would do here, it allows you to bridge assets cross-chain in a non-custodial and trustless manner. It's governed by YFlare and YFin holders. And essentially, you would place your asset on the native chain, so whether it be Binance Smart Chain or Ethereum, in a smart contract, which would send a relay across a bridge to the Flare network, telling the Flare network to mint that value, that wrapped coin, onto the Flare network to be used in the Flare Finance ecosystem. And then when you want to return it back to the original network, you bring that wrapped asset, burn it, and it'll send a signal across, releasing the asset you had locked up in the smart contract, and you can now use that value back on the native chain. So that's the process for doing that, all governed, like we said, by YFlare and YFin holders. And this is kind of like a pre-launch governance thing that they're doing for promotion of the network, allowing people just a taste of what voting will look like. And then I want to add on to this. So Flare Finance, in addition, says that these assets above, along with Spark, YFlare, and YFin, will help bootstrap the ecosystem with active liquidity and give various communities a chance to onboard into the Flare DeFi ecosystem. Also, interestingly enough, if you're going to be participating in the Flare Finance beta, which will be coming up soon, no exact date yet, but you will be able to submit governance proposals in the beta program for new wrapped assets that will be listed on FlareX. So whether you want to propose something or just participate in voting, I think there should be around 2 to 5 new assets that will be available through Flare Wrap before launch. Which is exciting. So I'm curious to see what kind of ideas the community is going to come up with. What kind of assets that people that are going to be participating in Flare Finance from the start will want to see on the network. And then finally, on this, I think it's important to note that on top of those assets listed, ones like Ethereum, Luna, USDT, BUSD, UST, that's the Terra stablecoin, all of those are already going to be readily available through Flare Wrap and listed on the FlareX exchange. So that's kind of cover like all the starting assets, and then obviously we'll see some new ones added on. And then once Flare Finance is live, we'll have proposals and additional governance votes to list more tokens in the future. And Mickey, so what does FlareX and this voting for these new wrapped assets really mean for the Flare network and as well as the Flare Finance ecosystem?
Yeah, so Flare X, we got to think of like Flare's Uniswap, but it's going to be even more powerful because it's going to have these F assets on it, which are going to be the big cryptos, the legacy ones like your Litecoin, your XRP, your XLM, your Doge, which are worth tens of billions in value. And they're really hard to bring over to other networks. Now, the reason why Flare Wrap could bring over those other ERC20s from Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, Terra, is they all share that same Ethereum virtual machine smart contract. So that allows them to lock it on that network and then issue it on Flare Finance. Now that can't be done with XRP and XLM and LTC and Doge. So those are special assets called F assets, and you earn rewards in Spark for those. Now Flare X is going to be a massive decentralized exchange with a bunch of liquidity pools. And there'll be two sides to those. People are going to want to swap from one asset to another. Many will be paired against the stable coin. You can just swap back and forth. And then the other side of it is those who provide the liquidity. And they'll earn the fees from that. Plus, they'll earn LP tokens, which then they could stake in Flare Farm to earn YFin. So there's going to be these incentives that create an ecosystem on both sides. So everyone can be a market maker instead of just the big institutions and whales moving the market and providing liquidity. Everyone has the ability to now provide liquidity as a market maker and a market taker as a trader. So I think that's one thing that really levels the playing field for many of these CeFi exchanges and allows you to trade in a decentralized way right from your basically Bifrost wallet or other Flare enabled wallet.
Absolutely. It's going to be very exciting to see this when it goes live. And to take us into our next topic, we're just going to, beat the drum some more on tribalism. So I'll start off with I really appreciate King Solomon and Crypto Airy, starting to speak out about this because it just seems to, over time, especially in a bull market, kind of get worse throughout the crypto community. And, it's important. We're going to keep beating this drum just because it's so important. A lot of us are a lot more like-minded than we think. We all have our reasons for why we're in cryptocurrency, as it's a new asset class, and there are a lot of risks associated with being early adopters. So, whether we're coming over because you see the yield, you see the price appreciation, and you just want to make money, or you're here for the future and your kids are going to be around and you see it, this is a great way for our financial society to be organized in the future, or just something about the current system isn't getting it done for you. We're all here for very similar reasons, I believe. And it's important, while all these different blockchains have different parts of them that make them better or worse than other ones, you may have something like the XRP ledger that's better for sending payments because it's cheap and fast. But Ethereum has been very good for DeFi because they're one of the first to implement smart contract capabilities and really like kickstart the whole ecosystem. And then if you go into Bitcoin, it was the first one ever created with one of the most novel ideas proposed in finance that's, ever happened. So every different crypto serves, some kind of purpose, at least these ones that have been around a long time. And it's just something like you may not like another asset, but, somebody else does. And we just need to, be aware of that. And, we're all in this together, and it's about like creating a better future for our entire world, our entire society, bringing
Mhm.
financial inclusion to those that don't already have it. And Mickey, I'll let you take on the rest here.
Absolutely, you said it really well with tribalism. I'm just going to touch on what DeFi means here and how decentralized finance can comply. Once it begins, and Trustline and Flare Finance are going to comply with KYC and travel rule. Once that happens, that opens up true finances to all level playing field. And guess what? It doesn't involve Goldman and the boys. It happens outside of that spectrum. And there's absolutely nothing that they could do about it. So you have this world converging. Not everything is going to happen because Goldman and the boys said so. This DeFi world is going to start from the grassroots, and it's going to grow big and become more complex. And as it meets regulatory requirements of KYC and AML, you're going to see the crypto custodians. There's 114 institutional crypto custodians and prime brokers right now. Most of them came in the last 8 to 12 months. And you know what? Goldman and the boys is not one. So this is all happening, and it's going to hit head on and converge with the traditional markets at some point. But what it means is it's our opportunity right now to be early pioneers and take advantage of those rewards and incentives and profit that could be made outside of just capital appreciation. There's yield opportunities here. There'll be winners and there will be losers, but the best projects will be built on the best infrastructure. And we believe Flare Networks is probably one of the best, if not the best, infrastructure to build DeFi on top of, due to its built-in decentralized Oracle system and native yield paying to all Spark holders and to the F assets. So FXRP and FDoge are going to be completely the same on Flare. They're going to both have superpowers. They're going to come with yield, and they're going to have Ethereum smart contracts. So they're going to be the same asset and the same abilities. Yes, they'll have their own decentralized native networks, and XRP Ledger will have a two-way bridge. So there are advantages there. But on Flare, they're the same asset, and they do the same things. So that's just a reality check for some people in the community. And these are decentralized networks. So no government's going to come and confiscate your assets away. These are decentralized, and that's the whole point of decentralized public networks. You're not a test bed, you're an early adopter who could take advantage of those opportunities. And that's how you have to look at this ecosystem and where it's going.
Yeah, and just like the United States kind of evolved into the melting pot of the world, Flare Network is, being created as a melting pot for cryptos, in order to unleash their value and come together and compromise and govern a brand new network. So I just think that's a really exciting proposition for us to be a part of, and
Mm-hmm.
something that should not be forgotten. But that's going to wrap it up for us today. Had Mickey B. Fresh with me, and I'm Patty XRP, and we're going to be signing off for now.